What's going on, guys? Yes, I am here with another interview. I had the awesome opportunity to sit down with director Daphne Baiwir to talk about her new documentary, King on Screen, which our review is up now. Luke and I got to sit down and talk about this film and just the importance of it and kind of how, it takes a different approach to this whole horror documentary renaissance that we've kind of been living through over the last year with things like, Living with Chucky, Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the upcoming Robo Doc, and of course, King on Screen here. This is a really cool interview. I had a lot of fun talking with her. We didn't get a lot of time to chat. I totally flubbed the last question, but I'm going to leave it in there just because even though it's a little awkward, I think that her response is dead on. And overall, I think that she's just a really fun person to speak with, and she made a really great doc. I really enjoyed it. Again, our review is up on the channel now if you want to get my more in-depth thoughts on this thing. But without further ado, here is my interview with Daphne. And thank you guys for checking it out. So, Daphne, I'm Dylan. I'm with Splattercast. We're up and coming horror podcast. We were super excited when we got the offer to check out your documentary. We are big Stephen King fans, as most everybody I think is who loves horror. I just wanted to start things off by saying when we started up your doc, one of the things that we were kind of really surprised by was the cinematic introduction that you kind of bookend the film with on either side there. Was that something that was like a part of the initial vision, or was that something that you guys decided to put in there after you had kind of assembled the film?
Well, actually, since the beginning, we thought that it could be great to have some kind of entrance for the audience into the Stephen King universe, So we really wanted to recreate the mood, to set the mood somehow of entering into the SKU. And so we worked a lot on that, and we thought that it could be great to have actors, who worked on previous adaptations, acting on this little short film. And it was a way to include them as well, because since I really wanted the heart of the documentary to be about the directors, I thought that could be a nice way to have the actors in the film as well, and doing what they do best, meaning acting. So we had the great chance to have James Caan voice, for example, at the beginning, as well as Tim Curry. And it's always fun, for people who know pretty well Stephen King's work, to discover some kind of Easter eggs there. And we had the chance to shoot in Maine as well. So we really went
always a plus.
into it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I was very surprised by that. Again, like we said, we threw this thing on, and we've had a lot of horror docs kind of over the last I would say like 2 to 3 years here that have been coming out, and this one it takes this approach that is so unique. And I love how you said that you wanted to really get into the heart of it with the directors, because it's like that's something that my co-host and I, on our podcast, we always spend a good deal of time talking about the directors and what they go through. And you have an incredible assembly of Stephen King alumni here. One of the big ones for me that I was so stoked to see was Mike Flanagan, of course, a more recent collaborator over the last few years. My question was there anybody that you couldn't get on board, or that you guys really wanted to have, but it just couldn't make it work?
Yeah, of course. For example, Andres Mukiele. I really love his work. I think he's an amazing director, but we couldn't make it in terms of schedule because he was crazy busy working a lot, and so we couldn't make it. And we were so lucky to have Mike Flanagan, because we made it like the only week he was in LA for like a year, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we really were like wanted to have him in the doc as well, and we got the chance to have him. But yeah, some of the directors like Andres Muschietti, we couldn't. Margaret Lambert, I would love to, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't got an answer from her. So some of them didn't answer or decline because they were too busy doing a lot of things. For example, Rob Reiner as well, he was working a lot, so he couldn't make it. Yeah.
Oh no, I get it completely. Yeah, it's like that's one of the things, like us being an up and coming podcast, we do our best to try to, toss the spear out into the water and see who we can catch. So it's like, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's the nature of the beast, really. When you're working in this industry, is just everybody's always working, or at least has some kind of a project they're doing. Um, my next question was, Stephen King has such a wide range of book to film adaptations. What was the process like narrowing down the films for King on screen? Was there like a specific lineup that you had in mind, like right from the beginning, or was this kind of like you had a long list and you kind of had to whittle it down? Because there have just been so many over the last few decades of just great Stephen King adaptations, some so, but for the most part, if you're a horror fan, you love them. So, what was that list like at the start?
Well, at the beginning, we really wanted, for sure, when you don't have Rob Reiner to talk about misery in the film, for sure, you know that you are not going to talk a lot about this adaptation, as well as Stand By Me. So we talked about some of them that are really connected to other directors. Like we wanted really in the structure to have some kind of a bond, you know. So it's Josh Boone who says that Stand By Me was a movie that really stayed with him and
Mhm.
that he really loved. So we really pretty much had some kind of films that we wanted to talk about, but at the end we really wanted to have like to pull a string through all the directors' interview and having one director talking about one topic in particular and then throwing the ball to another director and then to another one. So we would have this kind of organic structure and not something like again a documentary with a very encyclopedic way of seeing things like this date this film, this date this film,
Mhm.
because it would last a little bit its you know its humanity in some way. So we wanted something more conversational, you know.
Yeah, and I really admire that about this documentary. Again, like we said, how you do go for more of the human element as less of the, we're going to just go through all of the dates and all of the films that have released. It was much more based on that. And that's something that is honestly surprising, because, you get into these massive horror docs, like, the Crystal Lake Memories is a great one. It's awesome. It's one of the biggest horror docs you can think of, but like you come at this with this, like you said, very human approach. And was there ever a moment in your mind where you tried to find, like, you were kind of struggling to find that balance, where you just thought, is this going to satisfy horror fans? Because sometimes you see those criticisms where people are like, well, I just wanted the same 15 stories I've heard from, people talking about the making of Silver Bullet or The Shining. Was it kind of tough to find that balance, or do you think that it was kind of very organic as you went through editing and shooting the film, just finding that balance of this is the heart and this is the information?
Well, actually we worked like very somehow on the instinct as well, because when you are working with so many interviews you have to have something, you know, that makes sense. When you have 40 hours you really have to find a connection and be able to connect all the dots together. So for sure we knew that some of the fans would tell us, yeah, I know everything, I've seen everything, it's not new, it's not. But at the same time, being able to watch a documentary with so many Stephen King directors is new somehow,
Mm-hmm.
because there are no movies with documentaries with all so many Stephen King directors in it, and I think it's some kind like something like this that we really wanted to have. It's like creating one film with all the directors, some kind of reunion, you know. And at the same time, we really wanted the film to be, you know, accessible for people who don't know Stephen King at all. So that's why the opening of the film, of the documentary, for example, is Josh Boone saying that even if you never read Stephen King, you have seen for sure one of his movies. So it was like, you know, giving the chance as well to people who are not huge fan of King to discover a little bit more about his work, and perhaps opening a book after seeing the documentary. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was for me growing up too, is just one of those things where, you know, as a younger kid, you don't really start off by getting into Stephen King. I'm talking like, you know, you're 8, 9 years old. I mean, some people do, and they're better off for it. But, you know, for me, it was one of those things where, again, like the film that I always go back to is Silver Bullet, because that was a big one for my mother. So it's like that was one of those iconic films that just stuck out in my head, where the name Stephen King really stuck out. Then, of course, you have things like The Shining is a big one that you hear about all the time. And then, of course, the one that terrified me when I was young was It. That literally sent me screaming out of the room watching Tim Curry. So I got to know, what was the scariest Stephen King adaptation for you growing up?
The scariest was It as well, because I've been so much terrified by clowns, and seeing that film and Tim Curry in it is amazingly good, because he oh, I mean, I had goosebumps just thinking about Tim Curry in that film. And yeah, he's such a great actor, and the film in itself, I think, traumatized a lot of generations.
Yes, very much so. So I can imagine that, you know, getting into that and getting to, you know, meet Tim Curry and everything, I'm sure was pretty awesome. And it's one of those things where as you grow up, you do learn to appreciate the art that it takes to, you know, actually stick with kids and just like, you know, even adults. I know adults who saw it as adults and they were terrified. Um, but my next question is going to be, we've seen, again, a lot of documentaries that go over franchises, and some of those do dip into the Stephen King catalog. This one, you know, you tackle like just the intimate moments with these directors and how they got into the film and why they wanted to make these films. You know, was there ever any like hesitation or anything like that, as far as just like, you know, um, am I going to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, am I going to have trouble really expressing the moments that I really want them to get through? I guess I'm not wording this the best. I'm sorry. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, did you ever have any kind of hesitation on just trying to get the real voice of Stephen King's work through this, or was it more just were you just trying to really focus in on the filmmaker's voice?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I mean, a lot of the directors are huge fan of Stephen King. So they were, some of them since a very young age, and others wasn't very aware of who he was before making the film, and then after discover all of his work and became huge fan. So I think it's interesting because somehow they had so much work done on the book, on the adaptations that they wanted to make. They went so much deep into Stephen King's work. Then I think it's something that we can hear when we talk to the directors, because they know so much the material and Stephen King's essence, that you really have it, you know, in the documentary when you speak with them.
Absolutely. And I think that was very eloquently said. Not a great ask question, but that was a great way to tie it up. Because yes, I do believe that the voice of the filmmakers and King's voice, they do find when you really have a great Stephen King adaptation, and I think the documentary explains this very well too, is that you have this melding of the two, that they just understand each other. But that is all the time I believe that I have for you here, Daphne. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking about King on Screen. It's a wonderful documentary. I'm very excited for all of you guys to check it out. And we thank you for coming on the podcast. Huge thank you again to Daphne for taking some time to sit down with me. Yeah, I really had a fun time with this interview. Like I said in the intro there, I thought that she had a lot of really wonderful answers. It was great to relate on our trauma with Pennywise and Tim Curry and all the wonderful work that that team did to scare the bejesus out of us as kids. But of course, I did want to let you guys know that the horror documentary King on Screen will be in theaters on August 11th. Yes, that is this weekend. So you can go out and check this thing out in your local cinemas. But if you can't make it there, just so you know, it will be on demand and on Blu-ray September 8th. So you don't have a whole lot longer to wait to check this thing out. I highly encourage you to do it. It was definitely a very, very awesome documentary to get through. I really love the opening and closing vignettes that Daphne directed there. I thought that they were really cool, filled with lots of Easter eggs, lots of cool stuff. And of course, talking about Stephen King, the godfather of not only horror literature, but I would say horror stories in general, is always a win in my book. So thank you again, Daphne. And thank you guys for checking this interview out. We got a lot of great stuff up on the channel right now. If you guys have not seen our review of King on Screen, like I said in the opening, it is up on the channel for your viewing pleasure, as well as a few other reviews. Sorry, not interviews. We do actually have an interview with the director of Till Death Do Us Part. That was a very interesting one that Luke did. Very fun. I enjoyed watching that as well. I didn't get to sit in on that one. But as far as our reviews go, I did get to check out Meg 2 this weekend. I'm allowed to say on that, as well as a few more films that we got to check out over the last few weeks, like The Passenger, and of course, Till Death Do Us Part. So definitely check all those out. They're a whole lot of fun. It's been a really busy August so far. The end of July and the start of August here have been absolutely insane, and they're just going to get crazier. So stick with us. We got a lot of great stuff coming up on the channel. Of course, we have our short film coming to you guys very soon here. Sycophant. We shot that in July. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed piecing that thing together. Every day it gets a little bit closer to completion. And yeah, I just can't wait for you guys to check it out. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell. And yeah, stay scared.